Today, we are going to look at the horrifying last minutes of people mauled by wild animals. From a maintenance worker's fatal encounter with a jaguar, to a reptile rescuer that was bitten by a deadly black mamba. Let's jump straight in. It was August 14, 2015, and the sprawling grounds of a privately operated zoological park outside Chicago buzzed with peak summer activity. Families moved steadily through shaded pathways, children pointing at animal exhibits, while parents searched for cooler spots beneath the towering oak trees. The polar bear habitat, one of the park's busiest attractions, drew a steady crowd of visitors eager to watch the massive Arctic predators dive into their chilled pool or pace along the rocky edges of their enclosure. 11-year-old Tommy Chen hurried ahead of his family, energized by the sight of the bear exhibit just a short distance away. A fifth grader from Oak Park, Tommy was known for his fearlessness and love of climbing, traits that often left supervising adults anxious. His parents stepped aside to buy refreshments from a nearby vendor, briefly leaving Tommy under the watch of his 16-year-old sister, Jessica, who had turned her attention to her phone while responding to messages from friends. The polar bear habitat featured a deep swimming pool bordered by artificial rock ledges, textured concrete, and decorative ice-like structures built to mimic the Arctic landscape. Safety railings, warning signs, and distance barriers kept visitors separated from the moat system and the lower enclosure levels where the bears roamed. The setup created immersive viewing angles while maintaining the required buffer zones between the public and the animals. Polar bears are among the largest land carnivores in the world. Adult males can exceed 1,000 pounds, and even the smaller females possess immense strength, capable of breaking through ice, rolling heavy rocks, and dragging large marine mammals across the snow. Their curiosity and investigative behaviors remain intact in captivity, and despite appearing calm to viewers, they react powerfully when startled or presented with unfamiliar movement inside their territory. Tommy was captivated by the two adult bears swimming below, watching the ripple of water as the animals surfaced and submerged. The decorative rocks that formed a sloped barrier seemed climbable to him, and the view from the top looked like the best angle for photographs. Recent rainfall had left the artificial surface slick, but Tommy's confidence, sharpened by years of climbing playground structures, overruled caution. He slipped past the initial railing with ease, his small frame fitting through a space where larger adults wouldn't attempt to pass. Visitors nearby called out warnings, raising their voices when they noticed the boy moving toward the restricted section, but their attempts weren't enough to break his concentration. Jessica, still absorbed in her phone, didn't realize Tommy had gone beyond the designated public zone. Tommy scaled the decorative rock ledge, gripping whatever edges he could find as moisture and algae residue made the surface more treacherous than it appeared. He reached upward toward a protruding ridge that would allow him to lean over and see directly into the polar bear habitat. His sneakers slipped on the wet rock, and before he could regain balance, his hand missed its intended hold. Tommy's body pitched forward, and he fell approximately 15 feet, landing hard on the concrete section near the pool's edge. The sound of impact echoed through the lower enclosure and immediately drew the attention of both polar bears. The male surfaced first, water shedding from his fur as he climbed out of the pool. Tommy lay motionless, his left leg twisted unnaturally from the fall. The injury left him unable to crawl or attempt to roll away from the approaching bears. The female exited the water as well, moving toward the unfamiliar figure on the ground. At first, the male bear approached cautiously, lowering his head to sniff along Tommy's clothing and exposed skin. In real-world behavior, polar bears begin by investigating any new object in their environment, often using their paws to test for movement. When Tommy made a slight, involuntary motion, a reflex from pain, the response was immediate. The bear pressed a massive paw onto Tommy's back, pinning him to the ground with a force no child could withstand. The female circled closer, stimulated by the movement and scent. Zoo security began receiving emergency calls from visitors within seconds, but the enclosure layout prevented immediate access. As guards positioned themselves at the viewing platforms above, the bear's behavior shifted from investigation to a more forceful response, triggered by Tommy's movement. The male gripped Tommy's upper body with his jaws, dragging him several feet across the concrete, while the female struck at his limbs and torso with repeated paw blows. These reactions were consistent with defensive defensive and predatory instincts polar bears exhibit when encountering unfamiliar, vulnerable objects in their territory. Veterinary staff arrived with tranquilizer rifles, but neither bear presented a safe angle. Both remained positioned directly over Tommy, their movements preventing any shot that wouldn't risk hitting the child. Noise-based deterrents from the upper platform failed to draw the animals away. The attack lasted only moments, the bear's weight and force causing injuries that Tommy could not survive. When the bears finally stepped back, briefly distracted by staff activity, he showed no signs of life. Emergency personnel entered the enclosure only after the veterinary team sedated the male bear and secured both animals in their holding areas. Following the incident, the polar bear exhibit was closed for months as investigators examined barrier spacing, visitor flow patterns, and the decorative structures Tommy had scaled. The park reinforced physical barriers, revised railing designs, added continuous staff monitoring at high-risk exhibits, and increased signage clarity. Tommy's death led to a comprehensive reevaluation of the zoo's safety protocols, with new preventive measures implemented to better protect young visitors and prevent unauthorized access to restricted areas. It was October 7, 2016, and the pre-dawn darkness enveloped a local zoo outside San Antonio as maintenance crews began their daily routines before the facility opened to the public. The crisp autumn air carried the sounds of awakening animals as staff members moved quietly through the pathways, checking enclosures and preparing for another busy day of education and conservation. Miguel Santos arrived at his usual time, his weathered hands carrying the tools and supplies needed for his morning inspection of the big cat exhibits. At 34, Miguel had built a reputation as one of the zoo's most reliable maintenance workers, his 8 years of experience making him a trusted member of the animal care team. The father of 2 young children took immense pride in maintaining the habitats that housed some of the world's most magnificent predators. His meticulous attention to detail and genuine care for animal welfare had earned him the respect of keepers and veterinarians throughout the facility. Miguel's morning routine included checking the jaguar exhibit for any overnight damage or debris that might pose safety risks to both animals and visitors. The South American big cats were housed in a state-of-the-art facility featuring dense vegetation, climbing structures, and multiple holding areas connected by service corridors that allowed staff to work safely while maintaining the cats' natural behaviors. Jaguars are the 3rd largest big cats in the world, with powerful builds that make them exceptional hunters both on land and in water. These solitary predators possess the strongest bite force of any big cat, capable of crushing turtle shells and caiman skulls with ease. Adult jaguars can weigh up to 250 pounds and move with silent stealth through dense vegetation, making them nearly invisible until they choose to strike. Their territorial nature and powerful hunting instincts remain fully intact in captivity. Miguel noticed that the gate leading to the service corridor behind the jaguar exhibit wasn't properly secured, the latch mechanism appearing to have been left open from the previous evening's feeding routine. His experience told him that such oversights needed immediate attention to maintain the strict safety protocols that protected both staff and animals. Miguel believed the jaguar was secured in its indoor holding area, based on the status indicator showing the animal had been shifted the previous night. He entered the service corridor to investigate the gate mechanism and clear a fallen tree branch that had blown into the area during the night. The narrow walkway provided access to multiple viewing points and maintenance areas, while keeping staff safely separated from the big cats by reinforced barriers and electronic monitoring systems. Miguel's radio remained clipped to his belt as he focused on the mechanical issue that needed his attention. The adult male jaguar had actually been resting in the tall grass near the service area, his spotted coat providing perfect camouflage among the shadows and vegetation. The big cat remained motionless as Miguel entered the corridor, his predatory instincts assessing this unexpected intrusion into his territory. Jaguars are ambush predators that rely on stealth and explosive power to overwhelm their prey, often attacking from behind with devastating efficiency. Miguel bent down to retrieve the fallen branch, his back turned to the area where the jaguar lay hidden. The big cat moved with silent precision, covering the distance between them in a single powerful leap that that gave Miguel no opportunity to react or call for help. The jaguar's 200-pound frame struck Miguel with crushing force, driving him to the ground while powerful jaws clamped down on his neck and shoulders. The attack was swift and methodical, driven by territorial instincts and the jaguar's natural hunting behaviors. Miguel never had the opportunity to reach his radio, the ambush occurring too quickly for him to call for help. The jaguar's powerful bite force and razor-sharp claws inflicted fatal injuries within minutes of the initial attack. Miguel's supervisor discovered his body 20 minutes later during a routine check of the maintenance schedule, finding the service gate still open and signs of the violent encounter scattered throughout the corridor. The jaguar had returned to his normal resting area, showing no signs of continued aggression toward zoo staff who arrived to secure the scene. Emergency protocols were immediately implemented to ensure the safety of other workers while investigators documented the tragic accident. The incident prompted a comprehensive review of safety procedures and gate mechanisms throughout the facility, with new redundant systems installed to prevent similar oversights. Miguel's death highlighted the critical importance of communication protocols and backup safety measures when working around dangerous predators, leading to enhanced training programs for all zoo maintenance personnel. It was June 22, 2017, and the evening feeding routines at a small, privately run zoo outside Seattle were winding down as staff members completed their final animal care tasks of the day. The Pacific Northwest summer provided long daylight hours that allowed extended observation of animal behaviors, giving keepers valuable insights into the health and well-being of their charges. Sarah Mitchell moved quietly through the bear exhibit area, her veterinary training helping her assess the animal's condition during the peaceful evening hours. At 28, Sarah had been volunteering at the zoo for 6 months while completing her veterinary studies at the University of Washington. Her gentle approach with animals and genuine passion for wildlife conservation had made her a valued member of the volunteer team, though her supervisors occasionally noted her tendency to bend established protocols when she believed it would benefit the animals in her care. Sarah's academic background gave her confidence in reading animal behavior and identifying potential health issues. The grizzly bear exhibit featured multiple viewing areas and service corridors that allowed staff to observe and care for the massive predators while maintaining safe distances. Sarah had been assigned to assist with evening feeding documentation, recording behavioral observations, and noting any changes in the bear's appetites or activity levels. The routine work provided valuable experience with large carnivores while contributing to the zoo's research and conservation efforts. Grizzly bears are among North America's most powerful predators, with adult females weighing between 400 and 600 pounds and possessing incredible strength and speed. These omnivores are naturally wary of humans, but can become extremely aggressive when they feel threatened or cornered. Captive grizzlies retain all their wild instincts and can inflict devastating injuries with their massive claws and powerful jaws, making strict safety protocols essential for anyone working near their enclosures. During her evening observations, Sarah noticed that one of the female grizzlies appeared to be favoring her right front paw, occasionally lifting it off the ground and examining it with obvious discomfort. Her veterinary training immediately focused on the potential injury, and Sarah moved closer to the public viewing area to get a better assessment of the bear's condition. The animal's distress was clearly visible, and Sarah felt compelled to gather more detailed information before contacting the veterinary staff. Against established safety protocols, Sarah used a staff access panel she had previously observed keepers use, allowing her to slip into the service corridor without proper authorization. The narrow walkway was designed for maintenance access and emergency situations, not for close observation of potentially injured animals. Sarah believed her veterinary background qualified her to make a preliminary assessment that could help the zoo's medical team respond more effectively. The injured grizzly noticed Sarah's presence in the restricted area and approached the fence line with obvious agitation. The bear's stress from her injured paw, combined with the unexpected human presence in a normally secure area, triggered defensive behaviors that Sarah failed to recognize in time. The 500-pound female began testing the fence barrier, her powerful claws and massive strength finding a section of secondary mesh that had been flagged for repair earlier in the week after storm-driven debris bent one of the support brackets. The damaged mesh panel partially collapsed, creating a narrow gap along the maintenance partition that allowed the injured grizzly to push through into the adjacent service corridor. The narrow space provided no escape route as the injured bear charged with explosive speed, her defensive instincts overriding any natural wariness of humans. Sarah's veterinary training had not prepared her for the reality of facing an aggressive grizzly in an enclosed space. The bear's massive paws struck Sarah with bone-crushing force, driving her against the concrete wall while claws raked across her torso and limbs. Once she was on the ground, the grizzly's powerful jaws clamped down on her head and neck, its weight pinning her to the floor of the corridor. The attack was driven by defensive instincts rather than predatory behavior, but the result was equally devastating. Zoo security arrived within minutes of the first emergency alert, but the confined space and the bear's continued aggression made immediate intervention impossible. The veterinary team deployed tranquilizer equipment, while other staff worked to create distractions that might draw the grizzly away from Sarah's motionless form. The injured bear eventually retreated to a corner of the enclosure, allowing rescue personnel to reach Sarah, but her injuries were already fatal. The incident prompted an immediate shutdown of the bear exhibit, while structural engineers and animal care staff conducted a full containment review. The zoo implemented stricter volunteer restrictions, new multi-step access controls, and reinforced maintenance protocols around large carnivore enclosures. Sarah's death underscored the importance of adhering to established safety procedures, prompting long-term policy updates across staff training programs. It was March 18, 2014, and a regional wildlife park outside New York City showcased its newly completed tiger habitat beneath the professional lighting equipment that photographer David Park had spent the morning setting up. The 42-year-old freelance photographer had been hired to capture promotional images for the park's marketing campaign, his portfolio of wildlife photography making him the ideal choice for highlighting the impressive Siberian tigers in their new enclosure. The late winter afternoon provided ideal lighting conditions for the dramatic shots that would support the facility's conservation messaging. David had built his reputation on patience and technical skill, often spending hours waiting for a moment when an animal's natural behavior aligned perfectly with his camera's frame. His experience working in wildlife parks across the country had taught him to follow strict safety guidelines while capturing the power and presence of the world's most dangerous predators. The park's new tiger habitat featured multiple viewing areas and updated safety systems designed to give visitors immersive views while maintaining secure separation from the animals. The Siberian tiger habitat featured expansive outdoor areas connected to indoor holding facilities through a network of tunnels and corridors that allowed the massive cats to move freely while providing staff with safe access for feeding and medical care. David had been photographing through the reinforced glass viewing areas, capturing stunning images of the 400-pound male tiger as he moved through his territory with fluid grace. Siberian tigers are the largest cats in the world, with adult males weighing up to 660 pounds and measuring over 10 feet in length. These apex predators possess incredible strength, speed, and hunting instincts that make them among the most dangerous animals in any zoo collection. Their powerful jaws can crush bone with ease, while their razor-sharp claws and muscular build allow them to take down prey many times their own size. Even in captivity, Siberian tigers retain all their natural behaviors and territorial instincts. While reviewing his images, David noticed that a maintenance access door showed an incomplete latch from earlier repair work, leaving it not fully secured. His photographer's eye immediately recognized the opportunity for unique angles and perspectives that would be impossible to achieve from the public viewing areas. David believed the tiger was secure in its main enclosure, unaware of the connecting tunnel system that provided the big cat with access to multiple areas. David entered through the unlatched maintenance door, believing it was part of the approved staging area for his photography setup. The narrow service corridor provided access to various parts of the exhibit, while keeping staff separated from the tigers through multiple barrier layers. David positioned his equipment near a small viewing port that offered a unique angle he couldn't achieve achieve from the public side. Unknown to David, the tiger had access to an adjacent holding pen via a tunnel, and a secondary holding gate had not fully seated after the morning cleaning routine, creating a gap large enough for the tiger to push through into the keeper access zone. The massive predator had been resting in the tunnel system when David's presence and the sound of camera equipment triggered his territorial instincts. The 400-pound Siberian tiger pushed through the misaligned holding gate and stepped into the narrow keeper access area, his massive frame filling the confined space as he assessed the unexpected human presence. David turned from his camera setup to find himself face to face with 400 pounds of apex predator in a space barely wide enough for both of them. The tiger's massive head was less than 6 feet away, his amber eyes fixed on David with predatory intensity, while his powerful muscles tensed for action. David's camera equipment blocked his path to the exit door, while the tiger's position prevented any possibility of retreat. The tiger attacked with explosive power, striking David's chest and shoulders first and driving him against the concrete wall. Claws raked across his torso as the confined space amplified the impact, scattering his camera equipment across the floor. Once David was down, the tiger's powerful jaws clamped onto his head and neck, leaving him unable to escape. The attack was swift and driven by territorial instincts, the tiger reacting to an unexpected presence in its space. Zoo security responded to the emergency alerts within minutes, but the narrow corridor and the tiger's continued aggression made immediate intervention extremely dangerous. The veterinary team worked to tranquilize the massive cat, while other staff attempted to create distractions that might allow access to David's location. The tiger eventually retreated to his main enclosure, but David had already succumbed to his catastrophic injuries. The incident prompted an immediate shutdown of the tiger exhibit, while containment specialists and investigators conducted a full review of the holding systems and access points. The zoo implemented stricter access controls, reinforced door hardware, and revised contractor protocols to prevent unauthorized entry into restricted areas. David's death underscored the importance of maintaining clear separation between non-animal staff and the predators housed within the facility. It was September 11, 2013, and the darkened pathways of a mid-sized wildlife park outside Chicago lay silent beneath the soft glow of scattered security lights. The cool autumn air carried faint rustling from sleeping animals as night shift security guard Robert Hayes began his 2 a.m. patrol. At 51, Robert had spent 12 years protecting the park's collection of rare species, taking pride in ensuring the grounds remained secure during the quiet hours when only a handful of staff remained on site. His calm temperament and thorough approach made him one of the most trusted members of the night crew. Robert's responsibilities included checking exterior fencing, verifying that service doors were properly locked, and ensuring no storm damage or attempted break-ins had occurred. His ring of keys granted access to maintenance corridors and buffer zones, not the primary animal enclosures, but enough that he could inspect infrastructure without needing a keeper present. The wildlife park, which operated without formal accreditation, relied on a mix of older mechanical systems and newer electronic components that required routine attention, especially after heavy rain and high winds. The Great Ape House was one of the park's older structures. Inside were gorillas and orangutans housed in interconnected indoor habitats, each with holding pens separated by steel mesh, sliding gates, and manually latched doors. Unlike large accredited zoos with multi-layer interlocks, this facility depended heavily on proper manual latching and periodic mechanical inspections. Recent storms had caused intermittent power surges in the building, and maintenance teams had been scheduled to review the containment system later that morning. Western lowland gorillas are powerful primates, with adult silverbacks often weighing more than 350 pounds and capable of delivering tremendous force through their arms and upper body. They are generally calm animals, but sudden movements, bright lights, or unexpected intrusions into their space can trigger intense defensive reactions. In captivity, these natural instincts remain unchanged, making secure barriers and predictable routines essential for staff safety. When Robert approached the exterior of the Great Ape House, his flashlight beam caught what appeared to be storm-related damage on a section of protective fencing that lined the outside of the building. Several metal bars showed fresh bends, likely caused by falling branches. Wanting to assess whether repairs repairs were urgent, Robert unlocked the maintenance buffer gate, leading into the narrow service corridor that separated the public viewing area from the primary barriers. Unbeknownst to him, a mechanical slide gate inside the ape holding area had not fully seated after an earlier cleaning cycle. A piece of debris lodged in the track prevented the gate from locking into place, though a faulty sensor still displayed it as secured. With the gate slightly misaligned, a 350-pound male gorilla had slowly worked it open during the evening hours, entering the keeper access zone, a space that should have remained empty overnight. Robert stepped into the dimly lit service corridor, directing his flashlight toward the damaged exterior fence. His attention was focused upward as he traced the bent metal, unaware that soft shuffling sounds behind him were not part of the building settling. The silverback, already agitated by the storm, by unusual smells, and now by the sudden intrusion of light into a normally quiet area, moved toward the glow. When Robert turned at the faint scuffing behind him, the gorilla was already closing the distance. The 350-pound animal charged with explosive strength, crossing the short span of concrete before Robert had time to raise his radio. Massive fists struck his upper body with devastating force, slamming him backward into the wall. The impact knocked the radio from his belt, leaving him unable to call for help. The silverback's attack was driven by defensive instinct, its powerful arms wrapping around Robert's torso as it attempted to neutralize the perceived threat. The gorilla's grip compressed Robert's ribcage, pinning his arms while repeated blows rendered him unconscious within seconds. Any movement Robert made intensified the gorilla's response, as instinct signaled the need to eliminate a danger within its space. The assault lasted only moments, but the confined corridor magnified its severity. Once Robert stopped moving, the silverback released him and retreated to a corner near the misaligned gate, chest heaving as adrenaline subsided. The building fell silent again except for the low hum of emergency lights flickering overhead. Robert's absence went unnoticed until his 3 a.m. check-in was missed, prompting another guard to retrace his patrol and find his broken flashlight and motionless body in the service corridor. Emergency protocols activated immediately, and staff tranquilized the silverback before securing the area. Investigators later confirmed debris in the gate track and a faulty latch sensor that had incorrectly signaled the barrier as locked. The Great Ape House was shut down for repairs, with new redundant locks and revised overnight access rules implemented. Robert's death highlighted the risks posed by aging systems and reinforced the need for stricter safeguards. It was August 15, 2016, at a wildlife park in Oregon's Willamette Valley, where the rolling hills framed a 180-acre facility renowned for its conservation work and naturalistic habitats, housing more than 2,000 animals from around the world. Rachel Thornfield, a 32-year-old senior big cat keeper with 6 years of experience, was beginning her evening routine in the Predator Complex, home to the zoo's collection of tigers, lions, and leopards. Rachel had built her reputation as one of the zoo's most skilled and compassionate keepers, known throughout the zoological community for her gentle approach and intuitive understanding of feline behavior. She had successfully rehabilitated several traumatized big cats over the years, transforming fearful and aggressive animals into confident ambassadors for their species. Rachel's dedication to her work was matched only by her excitement about her upcoming wedding, planned for the following spring with her fiancé of 2 years. Her special relationship with Katya, a 6-year-old female Siberian tiger, had begun when the cat arrived as a rescue from a defunct traveling circus. Katya had been severely traumatized by years of abuse and neglect, arriving at the zoo as a fearful and aggressive animal who refused human contact. Rachel had volunteered to lead Katya's rehabilitation, spending countless hours earning the tiger's trust through patient care and consistent routines that helped the magnificent predator learn to feel safe again. The Predator Complex featured state-of-the-art enclosures designed with both animal welfare and staff safety in mind. Each habitat included multiple holding areas connected by automated gate systems that allowed keepers to move animals safely between spaces during cleaning and feeding. Maintenance logs from earlier in the week had noted minor hydraulic seepage on one of the actuator lines, but the issue hadn't yet been flagged as critical. Rachel had been working extra hours recently to save money for her wedding, often volunteering for overtime shifts that allowed her to spend additional time with the animals she loved while building her savings for the ceremony. Siberian tigers are the largest living cat subspecies, with adult females weighing between 300 and 400 pounds and possessing the strength to bring down prey twice their size. Despite showing a habituated or calm demeanor in captivity, tigers remain instinctive hunters whose reactions can shift from calm to lethal in seconds when triggered by movement, stress, or perceived threats. That evening, Rachel checked the automated control system that monitored Katya's location and the status of all gates within the habitat complex. The digital display indicated that Katya was secured in her holding area and that all safety protocols were functioning normally. What Rachel didn't know was that a silent mechanical failure had occurred in the automated gate system earlier that day. A hydraulic seal had begun leaking, causing the gate mechanism to lose pressure gradually over several hours. Rachel was spreading fresh straw near the feeding area when she heard a soft rustling sound behind her. She turned around to find herself face to face with Katya in the main enclosure, with no barriers between them and no immediate escape route available. For a moment, Katya seemed to recognize her keeper, tilting her massive head with what appeared to be curiosity rather than aggression. Rachel began speaking in the soothing tones that had helped build their relationship over 6 years, while slowly backing toward the keeper entrance. The fatal moment came when Rachel made a deliberate movement toward the exit gate, triggering Katya's territorial instincts. The tiger's pupils dilated as her predatory response activated, transforming her from a curious animal into a focused hunter. Katya crouched low and launched herself at Rachel with explosive force, covering the 20 feet between them in a single powerful leap. Katya's 380-pound frame struck Rachel with devastating impact, driving her backward onto the compacted soil and straw bedding that covered the enclosure floor. The tiger's massive front paws pinned Rachel's shoulders, while her powerful hind legs found purchase on Rachel's torso, her razor-sharp claws puncturing through the keeper's uniform and into flesh. Katya's powerful jaws clamped down on Rachel's neck with crushing force, her 4-inch canine teeth puncturing through vital structures, while her bite pressure exceeded 1,000 pounds per square inch. The tiger's instinctive killing bite targeted the base of Rachel's skull, severing the spinal cord and causing immediate unconsciousness. Rachel's screams during the initial moments of the attack echoed through the predator complex, immediately alerting other keepers to the emergency. Staff members arrived within minutes to find Katya standing over Rachel's motionless body, her predatory instincts still engaged as she guarded her kill. Katya was successfully sedated after several tense minutes, allowing veterinary staff and paramedics to reach Rachel's body. However, the tiger's killing bite had proven instantly fatal, with Rachel dying from massive trauma to her neck and spinal cord within the first moments of the attack. The investigation revealed that the hydraulic failure in the gate system had directly caused the fatal encounter. The incident prompted a comprehensive overhaul of the zoo's safety systems, with new redundant monitoring equipment and manual backup procedures implemented throughout the facility. Katya was relocated to a specialized big cat sanctuary in Colorado, where she could live without the stress of public exhibition. Rachel's family established a memorial scholarship in her honor to support students pursuing careers in wildlife conservation and animal care. It was March 7, 2015, and the Metro Zoo, located near Detroit, Michigan, was preparing for another day of operations in the industrial heart of the Midwest. The 125-acre facility, built in the 1960s and expanded over the decades, served as an important educational resource for the Detroit metropolitan area, while housing over 1,500 animals from around the world. Jerome Washington, a 44-year-old maintenance worker with 12 years of dedicated service, was beginning his early morning shift in the African Savannah exhibit, home to the zoo's pride of lions. Jerome had built his career on reliability and attention to detail, taking immense pride in maintaining the animal habitats to the highest standards. As a single father supporting his elderly mother and teenage daughter, Jerome often worked overtime shifts and took on additional responsibilities to provide for his family. His colleagues respected his work ethic and his genuine care for the animals, even though his job kept him behind the scenes rather than in direct contact with visitors. The African Savannah exhibit featured a large naturalistic habitat designed to showcase the lions in an environment that resembled their native ecosystem. Jerome's responsibilities included maintaining the complex water and filtration systems that kept the habitat's stream and pond clean and functional. A broken water pipe had been reported the previous evening, requiring immediate repair before the zoo opened to visitors. Jerome had coordinated with the night shift supervisor to ensure that Mufasa, the pride's dominant male, would be secured in his night house during the repair work. The 450-pound lion was known for his impressive mane and powerful build, making him one of the zoo's most popular attractions, but also one of its most dangerous residents. Jerome had worked around the big cats for years and understood the importance of following safety protocols when entering their territories. African lions are apex predators that can weigh up to 500 pounds and possess the strength to bring down zebras, buffalo, and other large prey. Male lions are particularly dangerous due to their territorial nature and powerful build, with massive shoulder muscles and 4-inch canine teeth designed for crushing bone. Even zoo-born lions retain their wild instincts and can become unpredictably aggressive when startled, threatened, or defending their territory from perceived intruders. That morning, a communication error between the night shift and day shift staff had left Mufasa with access to the main enclosure during Jerome's repair work. Jerome entered the habitat, carrying his welding equipment and repair materials, completely unaware that the massive lion was free to roam throughout his territory. Jerome began working on the broken water pipe near the center of the exhibit, using his welding torch to repair the damaged joint. The bright sparks and unfamiliar sounds of the welding process echoed across the habitat, creating exactly the kind of disturbance that would alert any predator to the presence of an intruder. The attack came without warning as Jerome continued his welding work. Mufasa emerged from the tall grass with explosive force, his 450-pound frame covering the distance to Jerome in powerful bounds. Jerome looked up from his work just in time to see the massive lion bearing down on him, his welding torch still sparking in his hand as he tried to process the impossible situation. Jerome instinctively raised his welding torch toward Mufasa, hoping the bright flame and sparks would deter the charging lion. Mufasa swatted the torch from Jerome's hands with a powerful blow from his massive paw, sending the equipment flying across the habitat. The impact of Mufasa's paw strike sent Jerome crashing to the ground, his welding helmet knocked from his head as he tried desperately to scramble away from the enraged lion. Mufasa pounced on Jerome with devastating force, driving him onto the compacted soil near the exhibit's maintenance area. Mufasa's powerful jaws clamped down on Jerome's head with crushing force, his 4-inch canine teeth puncturing through skull bone, while his bite pressure exceeded 650 pounds per square inch. The lion's razor-sharp claws raked across Jerome's torso and limbs as Mufasa established his dominance over the perceived intruder, each swipe opening deep gashes that severed major arteries and caused massive tissue damage. Jerome's screams echoed across the African Savannah exhibit, immediately alerting zoo security to the emergency. Staff members arrived within minutes to find Mufasa standing over Jerome's motionless body. his aggressive behavior still engaged as he defended his territory. The zoo's emergency response team deployed fire hoses and tranquilizer equipment to drive Mufasa away from Jerome's body. However, Mufasa's crushing bite had proven instantly fatal, with Jerome dying from massive head trauma within moments of the attack. The investigation revealed that the communication breakdown between shifts had directly caused the fatal encounter. The zoo immediately implemented new protocols requiring multiple confirmations of animal containment before any maintenance work could begin in predator habitats. Jerome's death prompted comprehensive changes to the facility's communication systems and safety protocols. His family filed wrongful death lawsuits that led to improved training and stricter oversight of maintenance operations throughout the zoo. It was June 22, 2017, and the Riverside Animal Park in California was experiencing another scorching day in the inland valleys east of Los Angeles. The 75-acre facility specialized in rescued exotic animals and served as both a sanctuary and educational center for visitors interested in wildlife conservation. Dr. Patricia "Patty" Chen, the zoo's 38-year-old head veterinarian, was preparing for a routine health examination of Diego, a 4-year-old male jaguar who had been showing signs of lameness in his left front paw. Dr. Chen had built her reputation on her exceptional skill with exotic animal medicine and her calm demeanor during even the most challenging procedures. She had successfully treated Diego multiple times over the past 3 years, developing what she believed was a strong professional relationship with the 180-pound jaguar. Her expertise with big cats had made her a sought-after consultant for other facilities, and she was currently working on a research project about jaguar health in captivity. Diego had been rescued from the illegal pet trade as a juvenile and brought to the sanctuary after being confiscated by wildlife authorities. His early trauma had made him more unpredictable than zoo-born cats, but Dr. Chen's patient approach had allowed her to provide necessary medical care without incident. The jaguar's current lameness required examination to determine if it was caused by injury, arthritis, or another underlying condition. The veterinary facility featured a specialized medical holding area designed for safe examination of dangerous animals. Standard protocol required full anesthesia for any hands-on examination of big cats, but Dr. Chen had successfully used light sedation for previous routine procedures with Diego. Jaguars are the third largest big cat species and possess the strongest bite force of any feline. These powerful predators are perfectly adapted for crushing the skulls and shells of their prey, making them extremely dangerous to humans in close contact. Dr. Chen entered Diego's medical holding area, carrying her examination equipment and a mild sedative that she believed would keep the jaguar calm during the procedure. Diego appeared relaxed, lying on his side in the position that had made previous examinations routine. The jaguar had received only a light dose of tranquilizer, leaving him alert but slightly disoriented. As Dr. Chen prepared her instruments, Diego's tail gave a slow, deliberate flick, a subtle sign of agitation she'd seen before but dismissed as minor restlessness. The attack came the moment Dr. Chen's fingers touched the sensitive area around Diego's injured paw. The jaguar's pain response, heightened by disorientation from partial sedation, triggered an explosive defensive reaction. Diego's jaws snapped shut on her forearm with devastating force, fracturing the bones in a single bite. He shook his head violently, a defensive motion that magnified the crushing and tearing damage, splintering bone and shredding tissue with each powerful movement. Diego released her mangled arm, only to immediately clamp down on her neck and shoulder, his crushing bite targeting the vital areas that jaguars instinctively attack to kill their prey. The jaguar's powerful jaws worked methodically, crushing bones and severing major blood vessels while his razor-sharp claws raked across Dr. Chen's torso and limbs. The assistant successfully tranquilized Diego after several terrifying minutes, but Dr. Chen had already sustained fatal injuries from the jaguar's crushing bite and claws. Dr. Chen died from her injuries, despite the heroic efforts of her colleagues and emergency medical personnel. The investigation revealed that Dr. Chen's decision to use only light sedation had directly contributed to the fatal attack. Diego was relocated to a specialized facility in Texas with enhanced security measures and protocols requiring full anesthesia for all medical procedures. It was October 11, 2014, at a wildlife park in Arizona's high desert, where perfect autumn weather bathed the red rock formations and tall saguaro cacti in warm light. The 200-acre facility, built among saguaro cacti and red rock formations, specialized in North American wildlife and served as both a tourist attraction and conservation center. Tyler Morrison, a 23-year-old recent college graduate with a degree in zoology, was beginning his second week as a bear keeper, eager to prove himself in his dream job, working with dangerous predators. Tyler had graduated at the top of his class with honors in animal behavior, but his academic knowledge had not yet been tempered by the practical experience that comes from years of working with unpredictable wild animals. His enthusiasm and willingness to volunteer for extra duties had impressed his supervisors, though some veteran keepers worried that his eagerness might lead him to take unnecessary risks. The bear habitat featured a large naturalistic enclosure designed to showcase grizzly bears in an environment that resembled their native mountain ecosystem. Tyler had been assigned to work with Bella, a 600-pound female grizzly known throughout the facility for her unpredictable temperament and aggressive responses to perceived threats. Bella had been rescued as an orphaned cub, but had never fully adapted to human presence, making her one of the park's most challenging animals. Tyler's training had covered the basic safety protocols for working with dangerous animals, but his limited experience had not yet taught him to recognize the subtle signs of animal stress and aggression that veteran keepers learned to read instinctively. The morning routine required careful coordination to ensure that Bella was secured in her den area before any keeper entered the main habitat for maintenance work. A fallen tree branch from the previous night's windstorm needed to be removed from the exhibit before visitors arrived, and Tyler had volunteered to handle the task as part of his training in habitat maintenance. Grizzly bears are among North America's most powerful predators, with adult females weighing up to 700 pounds and capable of inflicting catastrophic damage with their claws and jaws. These massive omnivores are equipped with 4-inch claws and strong jaws that can crush bone, making them extremely dangerous when surprised or when defending food or space. Even hand-raised bears retain their wild instincts and can become unpredictably aggressive when startled or challenged. Tyler had observed senior keepers perform similar maintenance tasks and believed he understood the safety procedures involved. However, his inexperience led him to skip a crucial step in the protocol. He failed to visually confirm that Bella was actually secured in her den area before entering the main habitat. Tyler entered Bella's habitat carrying a chainsaw and rope to remove the fallen branch, completely unaware that the 600-pound grizzly was resting behind a large boulder on the opposite side of the enclosure. The attack came without warning as Tyler bent over to examine the base of the fallen tree. Bella charged from behind the boulder with explosive force, her 600-pound frame covering the distance to Tyler in powerful bounds. Tyler heard the sound of approaching footsteps and turned just in time to see the massive grizzly bearing down on him with unstoppable momentum. Tyler's training kicked in as he tried to reach the nearest tree, hoping to climb to safety before Bella could reach him. However, his inexperience had led him to underestimate both the bear's speed and his own climbing ability. Bella caught Tyler before he could gain enough height to escape her reach, her massive paws swatting him from the tree trunk with bone-crushing force. Tyler crashed to the ground with Bella immediately on top of him, her enormous weight pinning him to the rocky soil while her territorial aggression took complete control. The bear's powerful jaws clamped down on Tyler's head and shoulders, her crushing bite force causing massive trauma to his skull and neck. Bella's 4-inch claws raked across Tyler's torso and limbs, each swipe opening deep gashes that severed major arteries and caused devastating tissue damage. The bear's attack was sudden and defensive, triggered by surprise and close proximity. The park's emergency response team deployed fire hoses and tranquilizer equipment to drive Bella away from Tyler's body. The bear's territorial aggression made her reluctant to retreat, requiring multiple tranquilizer darts before she finally succumbed to the sedation. Tyler had sustained fatal injuries during the prolonged attack, dying from massive trauma and blood loss before paramedics could stabilize his condition. The investigation revealed that Tyler's failure to follow proper containment protocols had directly caused the fatal encounter. Bella was relocated to a wildlife preserve in Montana, where she could live without human contact. The incident prompted the park to implement extended training periods and mandatory supervision for all new staff working with dangerous animals. Tyler's death devastated his family and the zoological community, serving as a tragic reminder that enthusiasm and academic knowledge cannot substitute for experience and strict adherence to safety protocols when working with apex predators. It was December 3rd, 2018, and the Wildlife Conservation Center in North Carolina was settling into the quiet of an early winter evening. The 100-acre facility, nestled in the foothills of the Blue Ridge Mountains, served as a sanctuary for rescued wildlife that could never be returned to their natural habitats. Margaret Maggie O'Brien, a 56-year-old retired teacher who had been volunteering at the center for 2 years, was preparing evening enrichment activities for Scout, a 4-year-old male mountain lion rescued from illegal captivity. Maggie had discovered her passion for wildlife conservation after retiring from 30 years of teaching elementary school. Her patient nature and genuine love for animals had made her a valued volunteer, often staying late to help with animal care duties that the small staff couldn't always complete during regular hours. Maggie had developed a special interest in Scout's rehabilitation program, believing that her teaching experience gave her unique insights into animal learning and behavior. Scout had been confiscated from a private owner who had kept him illegally as a pet, resulting in behavioral issues that made him unsuitable for release into the wild. The mountain lion's early exposure to humans had created an unusual combination of familiarity and unpredictability that made him particularly challenging to manage. Maggie had been working with Scout for over a year, helping to provide the enrichment activities that kept him mentally stimulated in captivity. The Conservation Center operated with limited funding and a small professional staff, relying heavily on dedicated volunteers like Maggie to maintain daily operations. Maggie's enthusiasm and willingness to take on additional responsibilities had gradually led to her being given more access to the animals, though she lacked the formal training that professional keepers received in reading animal behavior and recognizing danger signs. Mountain lions are powerful predators that can weigh up to 150 pounds and possess incredible agility and stealth. These cats are equipped with sharp, curved claws built for gripping and powerful jaws designed to deliver precise killing bites to the neck and spine of their prey. Even mountain lions raised in captivity retain their wild instincts and can become extremely dangerous when their predatory responses are triggered by movement, stress, or territorial disputes. That evening, Maggie was preparing Scout's enrichment activities, which included hiding treats throughout his habitat and arranging toys that would encourage natural hunting behaviors. The routine required Scout to be contained in his feeding area while Maggie worked in the main enclosure, but her familiarity with the mountain lion had led her to become careless about safety protocols. Maggie had grown overconfident in her ability to read Scout's behavior, believing that their year-long relationship had created a bond that would protect her from his predatory instincts. She entered his enclosure carrying bags of treats and enrichment items, focused on creating an engaging environment for the mountain lion without properly confirming that he was secured in his feeding area. Scout had been resting near the gate between his feeding area and main enclosure when Maggie began her work. The gate's latch mechanism had not properly engaged, allowing the 140-pound mountain lion to push through the barrier and enter the main habitat where Maggie was working. Scout's predatory instincts were immediately triggered by Maggie's movements as she bent over to hide treats and arrange toys throughout his territory. The mountain lion began stalking Maggie with the silent precision that made his species such effective hunters. Scout's padded paws made no sound on the soft earth of his habitat as he moved closer to his unsuspecting victim. His predatory focus entirely concentrated on the human who had invaded his domain. Maggie continued her work, completely unaware that she was being hunted by one of nature's most efficient killers. The attack came without warning as Maggie knelt to place treats near Scout's favorite resting spot. The 140-pound mountain lion launched himself through the air with explosive force, his powerful hind legs propelling him in a perfect predatory leap that brought him down on Maggie's back with devastating impact. Scout's razor-sharp claws extended fully as he landed, puncturing through Maggie's clothing and deep into her flesh. Maggie was driven face-first to the ground by Scout's weight and momentum. Her attempts to cry out cut short as the mountain lion's powerful jaws clamped down on the back of her neck. Scout's long canine teeth punctured through vital structures, while his bite force targeted the spinal cord with the precision that made mountain lions such effective predators. Scout's claws raked across Maggie's back and shoulders as he established his grip, each swipe opening deep gashes that severed major blood vessels and caused massive tissue damage. The mountain lion's predatory instincts were fully engaged, his powerful muscles working with mechanical efficiency to subdue his prey. Maggie's attempts to play dead came too late, as Scout's killing bite had already caused fatal damage to her spinal cord and major arteries. Other volunteers heard the sounds of the attack and arrived to find Scout standing over Maggie's motionless body, his predatory behavior still engaged as he guarded his kill. The Conservation Center's emergency protocols were immediately activated, with staff members using loud noises and emergency equipment to drive Scout away from Maggie's body. Scout was successfully tranquilized after several tense minutes, allowing paramedics to reach Maggie. However, the mountain lion's precise killing bite had proven instantly fatal, with Maggie dying from severe neck trauma and blood loss within moments of the attack. The investigation revealed that the improperly latched gate had allowed Scout access to the main enclosure during Maggie's work. The incident prompted comprehensive changes to the Conservation Center's volunteer policies, with new restrictions prohibiting volunteers from entering predator enclosures without direct professional supervision. Scout was relocated to a more secure facility in Colorado, with enhanced containment systems and specialized staff trained in mountain lion behavior. Maggie's death devastated the volunteer community and led to improved safety training and stricter protocols for wildlife rehabilitation facilities. Her family established a memorial fund to support wildlife conservation, while emphasizing the importance of professional training and safety procedures when working with dangerous animals. It was August 17, 2018, in Springfield, Illinois, when a traveling circus set up its big top on the dusty fairgrounds just outside the city center. The summer heat hung heavy over the canvas tents and metal trailers that formed the temporary home of the Keller family circus, a small operation that had been touring the Midwest for 3 generations. Inside the main tent, a 36-foot steel-paneled ring stood ready for the evening's lion act. The air smelled of popcorn, sawdust, and the faint musk of the big cats housed in transport cages behind the performance area. Adrian Keller was 47 years old and had worked with lions since his early 20s, learning the trade from his father. He was a middle-aged man with calloused hands and quiet confidence born from years of reading animal behavior. Adrian had recently integrated a new male lion into the pride, a 420-pound animal purchased from another facility. The integration had been slow, and the new male still hesitated at certain cues during rehearsals. Marco Diaz, a 34-year-old handler known for his methodical approach, had been assisting Adrian with the transition. Marco double-checked latches and carried a shield board during performances, always positioned near the inner Sallyport gate. Tasha Reed, 29, managed the fog machines and lighting. Dr. Leon Burke, a 51-year-old veterinary consultant, observed from the sidelines, monitoring the lions' stress levels and acclimation progress. That evening, the crew prepared the ring as the crowd filtered into the bleachers. The previous act had used an equipment stand that toppled during the set change, landing near the track of the interior guillotine gate. Tasha's fog machines had left a thin film of water glycol residue on the performance mat, creating a slick surface under the bright lights. One of the regular handlers had called in sick, leaving the team short-staffed. During the final walkthrough, Marco noticed the new male lion hesitating at the whip crack and target stick. The inner Sallyport gate cycled slower than usual, with the toppled stand partially obstructing its track. African lions are apex predators native to the savannas and grasslands of sub-Saharan Africa. Adult males can weigh between 330 and 550 pounds, with powerful jaws capable of exerting over 650 pounds of pressure per square inch. They are social animals that establish hierarchies within prides, and males are particularly sensitive to spatial pressure and perceived challenges. In captivity, lions retain their predatory instincts, and stress or confusion can trigger defensive or opportunistic behavior. The species relies on explosive bursts of speed over short distances, and their forelimbs are equipped with retractable claws that can measure up to 1.5 inches in length. The act began as planned. Adrian entered the ring with his target stick and whip, guiding the 3 lions onto their platforms. The 2 familiar lions performed their leaps and sit-stays without issue, but the new male stalled, remaining on the ground instead of mounting his platform. Adrian stepped back to redirect the animal, moving between the pride and the partially blocked exit. His boot heel caught the slick residue from the fog fluid, and his footing gave way. The target stick clattered to the mat as Adrian's posture dropped, his back now turned toward the new male at a distance of roughly 6 feet. The new male closed the gap in a single rush. The lion's shoulder struck Adrian's side, and the impact drove him fully to the ground. Within seconds, a second lion moved in, pinning Adrian's upper body against the mat with its weight. The new male clamped down on the right side of Adrian's neck and shoulder, the canines penetrating deep into the soft tissue. The pressure prevented Adrian from rising or calling out. His right arm was trapped beneath the second lion's forelimbs, and his legs kicked briefly before going still. Marco and the remaining handler pressed forward with shield boards, shouting commands and sounding CO2 air horns. The lions did not immediately release. The inner gate began its cycle, but the toppled equipment stand slowed its movement. Tasha ran to clear the obstruction, while Dr. Burke radioed for emergency medical response. After what witnesses later estimated as 20 to 30 seconds, the handlers managed to pressure the lions back using control poles, and the gate finally cleared. Witnesses later clarified that the exact duration was unclear in the chaos. What felt like half a minute may have been closer to 15 seconds. Adrian was pulled through the Sallyport and onto the ground outside the ring. His neck showed deep lacerations on the right side, with significant tissue damage extending from the base of the jaw to the collarbone. The right shoulder was crushed, and puncture wounds were visible across the upper chest. His airway was compromised, and he was unresponsive. Paramedics arrived within minutes and attempted resuscitation. resuscitation, but Adrian showed no pulse and no respiratory effort. He was pronounced dead at the scene. The cause of death was asphyxia due to airway compression, combined with traumatic injury to major blood vessels in the neck and shoulder. The Keller family circus canceled the remainder of its Springfield run. The USDA launched an investigation into the incident, reviewing the facility's Animal Welfare Act compliance and safety protocols. Adrian's family released a brief statement expressing grief and asking for privacy. It was February 22, 2020, in Tulsa, Oklahoma, when a regional circus prepared for its afternoon performance at the Expo Square Fairgrounds. The facility's livestock pavilion had been converted into a temporary big cat venue, with holding cages positioned in a climate-controlled bay adjacent to the main performance arena. A 28-foot shift tunnel connected the holding area to a 36-foot steel-paneled performance cage, allowing handlers to move animals safely between spaces. The tunnel featured a double-door Sally Port system designed to prevent direct contact during transfers. Outside, wind gusts from an unseasonably warm front rattled the bay doors, and one had been propped open to ventilate the holding area. Meredith Shaw was 31 years old and had been working with big cats for 6 years. She started as a ring assistant before training under veteran handlers, eventually specializing in transfer protocols and behavioral cueing. That afternoon, she was responsible for guiding a 500-pound male Bengal tiger from holding into the performance cage using a lure line with a meat pouch attached. Rick Nolan, a 41-year-old tunnel handler, was stationed at the gate controls to manage timing and verify that latch pins were dogged and carabiners clipped. Janelle Ortiz, 26, worked as a ring assistant, positioning perch stands inside the performance cage. Curtis Lamb, 38, served as the safety lead, enforcing double-door procedures. The setup had been rushed that morning due to a scheduling conflict. During a brief inspection, Rick noticed a slight misalignment in the tunnel panels and refastened them. But amid the noise of equipment moving, a verbal reminder to dog the inner latch pin went unanswered. The wind from the open bay door carried the scent of the lure meat in an unpredictable direction, and during rehearsal, the tiger had tracked the lure with unusual intensity. Janelle and another assistant were repositioning heavy perch stands as the tiger was staged, leaving fewer hands available to monitor the tunnel. Bengal tigers are among the largest subspecies of tiger native to the Indian subcontinent. Adult males can weigh between 400 and 570 pounds, with muscular builds adapted for ambush hunting. Their jaws can deliver a bite force exceeding 1,000 pounds per square inch, and their canine teeth can reach lengths of 3 inches. Tigers are solitary apex predators with acute senses of smell and hearing. They rely on stealth and explosive power, capable of covering short distances at speeds up to 40 miles per hour. In captivity, tigers retain their predatory drive, and environmental stressors such as unfamiliar scents or sounds can trigger rapid defensive or opportunistic responses. The transfer began as the music cue swelled. The tiger was released from the holding cage into the tunnel, and Meredith stood near the arena side door holding the lure line to guide the animal into the performance cage. Because of the tight schedule and reduced staffing, Meredith worked closer to the tunnel gate than safety protocol typically allowed. The inner latch pin had not been fully dogged, and the carabiner securing the door remained unclipped after the hurried reset. As the tiger moved forward, it applied pressure against the inner door. The door flexed, creating an initial gap of nearly a foot. Under the tiger's weight and repeated pressure, the panels bowed further, allowing the animal to force its way through. Meredith was within arm's reach, focused on repositioning the lure line to correct for the wind-altered scent trail. The tiger surged through the gap in a short, powerful pounce. The impact struck Meredith's torso and drove her backward into the tunnel panel. The tiger's jaws closed on her right shoulder and upper chest, the canines penetrating deep into the tissue. Meredith's left arm came up reflexively, but the tiger's weight pinned her against the metal framework. Her legs buckled, and she dropped to a seated position as the tiger maintained its grip. Rick and Curtis moved immediately, grabbing shield boards from the nearby rack. They shouted commands and positioned the boards between themselves and the animal. Curtis sounded a CO2 air horn, the sharp blast echoing inside the tunnel. The tiger did not release. Rick applied a control pole to the tiger's shoulder, attempting to create leverage, while Curtis worked to close the flexed door. The tiger shifted its grip, dragging Meredith several inches deeper into the tunnel space. Her right arm hung limp, and blood spread across her shirt and the tunnel floor. After approximately 15 seconds, the combined pressure from the shield boards, air horn, and control pole caused the tiger to yield enough space for Curtis to force the inner door shut. The tiger retreated into the performance cage, and Rick pulled Meredith out through the holding side door. Her right shoulder and upper chest showed deep lacerations with exposed muscle and bone. The subclavian artery had been severed, and massive hemorrhage was evident. Her breathing was shallow and irregular, and she lost consciousness within moments. Paramedics arrived within 8 minutes, but Meredith had no detectable pulse. Resuscitation efforts continued en route to the hospital, but she was pronounced dead shortly after arrival. The cause of death was exsanguination due to traumatic vascular injury. The circus canceled its remaining Tulsa performances. The USDA opened an investigation focusing on gate maintenance and adherence to double-door protocols. Local advocacy groups renewed calls for stricter regulations on traveling big cat acts. The tiger was placed in quarantine and later relocated to a sanctuary. It was March 3, 2021, in Billings, Montana, when a small independent animal act prepared for its evening performance at a fairground on the city's western edge. Behind the main tent, a 12 by 16-foot holding pen, constructed of 8-foot heavy-gauge steel mesh, housed a brown bear between shows. The pen included a sliding feed door, designed to allow handlers to deliver food without entering the enclosure. Protected contact protocol called for using a chute, but the food tub that day was placed directly inside the threshold. Equipment noise from a nearby generator created a steady background hum, and the cold March air carried the scent of livestock from adjacent pens. Brian Caldwell was 38 years old and had worked with the Animal Act for 4 years. He had prior experience in livestock handling and was known for his hands-on approach and willingness to troubleshoot issues. Brian was responsible for feeding and pen maintenance. Dana Wu, a 33-year-old animal technician, managed diet logs and had flagged concerns about the slide door's track. Pete Harrow, 47, served as the pen carpenter and was on site to address the sticky slide door, which required a mallet tap to seat fully. Alma Price, 54, worked as stage manager, coordinating traffic lanes in the back lot. The bear had just completed its performance routine and was transitioning into feeding mode. Brown bears exhibit heightened food drive, particularly during the first feeding of the day, and the animal had not been fed since early morning. Pete had noted that grit in the slide door track was causing the door to rebound slightly when closed, preventing it from latching securely. A blackout curtain separated the pen area from the main staging zone, limiting line of sight and clear communication. Brian had been instructed to wait for Pete to complete the track repair before feeding, but the schedule was tight, and the bear was showing signs of agitation. Brown bears are large omnivorous mammals native to North America, Europe, and Asia. Adult males can weigh between 400 and 800 pounds. They possess immense strength and can deliver blows with their forelimbs that crush bone. Their jaws exert a bite force of approximately 1,200 pounds per square inch, and their claws can measure up to 4 inches in length. Brown bears are opportunistic feeders with acute senses of smell, and food-related stimuli can trigger intense focus and rapid movement. Any perceived spatial intrusion during feeding can provoke defensive aggression. Brian approached the pen with a food tub containing fish and kibble. The slide door was partially closed but not fully latched due to the grit in the track. Brian knelt at the threshold to reposition the tub, placing it approximately 3 feet inside the pen. His torso was within reach of the door gap. The bear, a 600-pound male, was positioned roughly 8 feet from the door and moved forward as the scent of the food intensified. The bear hooked a forepaw through the gap in the slide door and pulled. The door shifted open several more inches, and the bear's second paw joined the first, widening the opening. Brian attempted attempted to pull back, but the bear's grip caught the edge of his jacket and shoulder. The force pulled Brian off balance, and his upper body was dragged into the threshold. The bear secured a hold around Brian's midsection with both forelimbs, the claws penetrating his sides and back. Brian was pulled fully into the pen and forced to the floor. The bear's weight pressed down on Brian's chest and abdomen. The bear's jaws closed on Brian's left shoulder, crushing the tissue and bone. Brian's legs kicked against the pen floor, but the bear maintained its position. The bear shifted its grip to Brian's upper torso, applying compressive force across the rib cage. The pressure caused multiple rib fractures, and Brian's breathing became labored and irregular. Dana heard the commotion and shouted for Pete and Alma. Pete grabbed a fire extinguisher and discharged it through the mesh at the bear's face. Alma activated an air horn, and the combined noise and chemical irritant caused the bear to release its hold and retreat to the far corner. Pete and Dana pulled Brian out through the slide door. Brian's chest showed significant deformation, with visible bruising and swelling across the rib cage. Deep lacerations and puncture wounds covered his shoulders, sides, and back. His breathing was shallow and erratic, and he was unresponsive. Dana initiated CPR, while Alma called emergency services. Emergency crews stationed at the fairgrounds arrived within 12 minutes through the livestock access lane, but Brian had no detectable pulse. Advanced life support measures were attempted, but Brian was pronounced dead at the hospital. The cause of death was compressive thoracic trauma, with associated internal injuries, including cardiac and pulmonary contusions. The Animal Act was immediately suspended, and the bear was placed under quarantine. The USDA launched an investigation into pen construction, feeding protocols, and protected contact standards. The bear was later transferred to a wildlife sanctuary. It was July 21, 2020, in Orlando, Florida, when a traveling sideshow aquatic act set up its signature attraction inside a large circus tent at the Orange County Fairgrounds. The centerpiece was a 20 by 12-foot acrylic viewing tank filled with 4 feet of water, designed to showcase close contact stunts with an American alligator. The tank sat on a reinforced platform under bright stage lights, and a fog machine created atmospheric effects. The humid summer heat made the tent's interior oppressive, despite industrial fans running at full capacity. Elaine Porter was 35 years old and had been working with reptiles for over a decade. She began her career at a wildlife education center before transitioning to performance work, specializing in alligator handling and water-based demonstrations. The stunt she performed involved standing on a submerged platform 18 inches below the water's surface, while the alligator, secured by a catch rope looped near its forelimbs, remained in a controlled position. Noah Grant, a 30-year-old aquatic rigger, was responsible for checking the platform rigging and the quick-release mechanism that controlled the catch rope. Valencia Cruz, 27, operated the spotlight, adjusting beam angles to ensure visibility through the water and acrylic. Dr. Priya Nayar, 45, served as the veterinary advisor, monitoring the alligator's respiration patterns and stress indicators. The catch rope showed a minor fray near the splice point, where it connected to the quick release, a detail Noah had noted but decided could wait until after the show for replacement. During rehearsal earlier that day, the alligator had performed a quick roll when Elaine's foot brushed the platform edge, suggesting heightened sensitivity to contact. The fog machine's output, combined with glare from the stage lights, created areas of reduced visibility at the tank's corners. The quick release mechanism was mounted under the platform edge, requiring Elaine to crouch and reach into the water to reset it between sequences. American alligators are large reptiles native to the southeastern United States. Adult males can reach lengths of 10 to 15 feet and weigh between 400 and 800 pounds. Alligators possess powerful jaws capable of exerting bite forces exceeding 2,900 pounds per square inch. Their teeth are conical and designed to grip, and they employ a hunting technique known as the death roll, in which they rotate their bodies rapidly while maintaining a grip to disorient and subdue prey. Alligators are ambush predators with excellent low-light vision and pressure-sensitive receptors along their jaws that detect movement in water. Any sudden movement or contact near their strike zone can trigger a rapid defensive response. The performance began as planned. Elaine entered the tank and took her position on the submerged platform. The alligator, an 8-foot male weighing approximately 280 pounds, floated in a stationary position roughly 4 feet away, held in place by the catch rope. The routine called for Elaine to guide the alligator through a controlled open-mouth display, then pivot on the platform to reposition for the next sequence. As Elaine crouched to reseat the quick-release mechanism under the platform, the frayed section of the catch rope failed at the thimble eye, slipping free of the anchor shackle. Slack formed in the line, and the alligator was no longer restrained. The alligator surged forward, closing the 3-foot distance in less than a second. Its jaws opened and clamped down on Elaine's right forearm. The force of the bite caused Elaine to lose her balance, and she fell from the platform into the deeper section of the tank. The alligator maintained its grip and initiated a rotational roll, spinning its body along the tank's corner. Elaine's body was pulled under the surface and rotated with the alligator. Her left arm came up and struck the acrylic wall, but the alligator did not release. Noah and Valencia reacted immediately. Noah grabbed a control pole from the equipment rack and moved to the tank's edge. Valencia shouted for Dr. Nair, who ran to assist. Noah inserted the pole into the water and applied pressure to the alligator's body, attempting to disrupt the roll. The crew lifted the platform panel to create more working space. Dr. Nair used a second pole to lever against the alligator's jaw. After approximately 10 seconds of sustained effort, the alligator released its grip and moved to the opposite end of the tank. Noah and Dr. Nair pulled Elaine to the surface and out of the water. Elaine's right forearm showed deep lacerations with exposed bone and torn muscle tissue. Her face and upper body were pale, and she was not breathing. Water had entered her airway during the prolonged submersion and rotational movement. Noah began rescue breathing, while Valencia called emergency services. Paramedics arrived within 7 minutes, but Elaine remained unresponsive. Advanced airway management and CPR were initiated, but she was pronounced dead at the hospital. The cause of death was drowning with a contributory traumatic injury to the right arm. The Sideshow Act was immediately shut down, and the alligator was placed in quarantine. The Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission opened an investigation, examining rope maintenance, platform design, and emergency response protocols. Elaine's family released a statement describing her as passionate about wildlife education. It was January 18, 2024, in a private training compound on the outskirts of Reno, Nevada, where a small team prepared for a closed rehearsal of a vaudeville-style animal act. The facility consisted of several reinforced structures for working with primates, including a 24 by 24-foot rehearsal room with 8-foot reinforced steel panels, a roof, and an inner service gate leading to a sally port system. The compound operated under private ownership with permits for non-exhibition training. Nearby, a maintenance crew was testing a pneumatic door system, and the intermittent banging sounds echoed across the compound. Colin Drake was 40 years old and had been working with primates for nearly 15 years. He started his career at a research facility before transitioning to animal training for entertainment. The rehearsal that day involved 3 chimpanzees, 2 juveniles weighing approximately 70 pounds each, and 1 adult male weighing around 120 pounds. The routine included barrel rolls, ladder climbs, and hand-targeting exercises. Evelyn Park, a 32-year-old trainer, led the targeting sequences while carrying a shield board for safety. Mateo Ruiz, 28, worked as the facility technician and was on site to address a sticky gate pin noted in the maintenance log. Harold Young, 57, served as the show caller, responsible for blocking scene transitions and timing cues. The service gate was equipped with a double pin system, a top pin and a bottom pin, both needing to be seated and secured with padlocks. That morning, Mateo had noted the bottom pin was sticky and required replacement, but the repair had been postponed. During warm-up, the adult male chimpanzee had tested the panel flex by bouncing against it. Colin entered the room wearing a hip belt with treat pouches attached. The adult male had shown strong interest in the food pouches during previous sessions. Chimpanzees are highly intelligent primates, native to the forests and savannas of Central and Western Africa. Adult males can weigh between 90 and 130 pounds, with muscular build builds that provide strength far exceeding that of an average human. Chimpanzees possess approximately 1.5 times the upper body strength of humans relative to their size, and their bite force can exceed 1,300 pounds per square inch. They have long canine teeth capable of inflicting deep puncture wounds. In captivity, they retain their natural strength and social instincts, and any perceived threat or opportunity for food can trigger rapid and intense responses. The rehearsal began with ladder work, and the chimpanzees initially followed the targeting cues. However, the pneumatic door testing started shortly after, and the intermittent banging sounds caused the adult male to shift his attention away from the targets. Colin stood near the center of the room, positioned between the adult male and the service gate. The treat pouch on his hip belt was partially unsecured. The adult male moved toward Colin with sudden speed. The adult male grabbed the treat pouch and pulled, yanking Colin off balance. Colin stumbled forward, and the adult male maintained his grip on the pouch and Colin's clothing. The two juvenile chimpanzees joined in, pulling at Colin's arms and legs. The juveniles mimicked the dominant male's aggression, a common escalation pattern in captive primate hierarchies. Colin was dragged to the floor near the service gate, and the adult male positioned himself over Colin's torso. The bottom pin of the gate, which had not been clipped with its padlock, allowed the panel to flex outward slightly. The adult male delivered a bite to Colin's left forearm, the canines penetrating deep into the muscle. Colin's right arm came up defensively, but the adult male grabbed it and pulled it down. The juveniles continued to pull at Colin's clothing and limbs. The adult male then bit Colin's right shoulder, the force crushing the soft tissue and causing significant bleeding. Colin's legs kicked against the floor, but the combined weight of the three animals kept him pinned. Evelyn and Harold reacted immediately. Evelyn grabbed her shield board and moved toward the group, shouting commands. Harold retrieved a fire extinguisher and discharged it toward the adult male. The noise and chemical irritant caused the juveniles to retreat, but the adult male maintained his position for several more seconds before finally releasing Colin and moving back. Mateo opened the sally port to assist. Evelyn and Harold pulled Colin out of the rehearsal room. Colin's left forearm showed deep lacerations with exposed muscle and bone. His right shoulder was severely damaged with puncture wounds and torn tissue. Multiple bite marks were visible on his torso, arms, and legs. Blood loss was significant, and Colin's breathing was shallow and rapid. Evelyn applied pressure to the wounds, while Harold called emergency services. Paramedics arrived within 10 minutes, but Colin had lost consciousness and showed signs of shock. Advanced trauma care was initiated on site, and Colin was transported to the hospital. Despite medical intervention, Colin was pronounced dead approximately 45 minutes after arrival. The cause of death was exsanguination from multiple traumatic wounds. The compound was placed under immediate review. The USDA and Nevada Department of Wildlife launched investigations into safety protocols and primate handling standards. Colin's family released a statement requesting privacy. The three chimpanzees were placed in quarantine and later transferred to a sanctuary. Colin Drake's death marked the fifth fatal incident involving circus and performance animals in recent years, underscoring the persistent dangers faced by handlers working in close contact with powerful and unpredictable species. It was March 15, 2016, and the sprawling desert landscape outside Phoenix, Arizona, stretched endlessly under the late afternoon sun. The isolated ranch-style home sat on 5 acres of scrubland, surrounded by towering saguaro cacti and rocky outcroppings that provided perfect habitat for the region's diverse reptile population. The property's remote location, nearly 20 miles from the nearest neighbor, offered complete privacy for activities that most people would consider unthinkably dangerous. Diane Kruger had been living alone in this desert sanctuary for 8 years, ever since her divorce from a husband who couldn't understand her growing fascination with venomous snakes. At 47, the insurance adjuster had transformed her modest home into something resembling a private zoo, with over 30 species of deadly serpents housed in custom-built enclosures throughout every room. What had started as a casual interest in reptiles during a childhood visit to the zoo had evolved into a consuming obsession that dominated every aspect of her life. Diane's collection represented years of careful acquisition through reptile shows, private breeders, and online forums where enthusiasts traded rare specimens. She had no formal training in herpetology or venom extraction, but considered herself an expert through decades of self-study and hands-on experience. Her neighbors remained blissfully unaware of the deadly menagerie living just miles from their own homes, and Diane preferred it that way. The crown jewel of her collection was a magnificent 6-foot eastern diamondback rattlesnake that she had acquired just 2 weeks earlier from a breeder in Georgia. The massive serpent, with its distinctive diamond-patterned scales and considerable size, was regarded as one of the most formidable venomous snakes in North America among experienced handlers. Eastern diamondback rattlesnakes are the largest venomous snakes in North America, with adults commonly reaching 5 to 6 feet in length and weighing several pounds. Their venom is primarily hemotoxic, capable of causing rapid swelling, significant tissue damage, clotting disruption, and systemic shock without prompt medical treatment. Large individuals can deliver substantial venom in a single defensive strike, and severe envenomations can become life-threatening if care is delayed, especially in remote areas where response times are extended. That Sunday evening, a partially filled glass of wine was found on the kitchen counter, and feeding tools were laid out nearby, indicating she had been tending to her collection before the incident. The enclosure for the eastern diamondback was open, and the water bowl had been removed, suggesting she began routine cleaning while moving through her feeding tasks. Diane opened the custom-built terrarium and reached across the enclosure to remove the water bowl. Gloves and handling tools were present in the room, but were not in use when responders later examined the scene. The terrarium door was fully open, the bowl was positioned on the table beside her tools, and the placement suggested she was midway through a routine cleaning step when the incident occurred. When investigators arrived, the eastern diamondback was found coiled at the rear of the enclosure, a posture consistent with a defensive response after a disturbance. Based on the angle of the bite marks on Diane's forearm and the blood pattern on the floor, her arm entered the snake's strike range while she was reaching inside the enclosure. Eastern diamondbacks deliver extremely fast defensive strikes, and the wound spacing matched a rapid forward extension typical for the species. The puncture depth on her forearm indicated a full strike and release, which aligns with the species' normal behavior. Large rattlesnakes typically inject significant venom during such strikes, and the immediate swelling and blood loss documented at the scene were consistent with a high-volume envenomation. After striking, the snake retreated to the back corner, where it remained until responders secured it. Blood from the puncture wounds formed a trail from the enclosure toward the adjacent room, indicating she moved away immediately after the bite. Her phone was recovered on the floor nearby, consistent with an attempted call. Rapid swelling, discoloration, and bleeding at the bite site matched significant hemotoxic envenomation. Without antivenom, systemic effects typically progress over hours, producing increasing weakness and impaired coordination. The extent of swelling, discoloration, and tissue damage observed during examination reflected the progression of untreated hemotoxic envenomation. Such effects can lead to shock and organ failure without rapid antivenom administration, and the remote location significantly delayed any chance of medical intervention. With no access to immediate care, she deteriorated over the next several hours and ultimately lost consciousness inside the home. A postal worker discovered Diane's body 3 days later when accumulated mail raised concern. Responding officers found numerous venomous snakes housed throughout the residence, some in improvised enclosures, but all were contained. Wildlife officials temporarily seized the animals for evaluation and initiated a review of her permits and housing conditions. Local authorities later examined existing exotic animal oversight procedures but did not implement immediate law changes. It was August 22, 2014, and the small private herpetology research lab where Dr. Michael Webb worked had already gone quiet for the evening. The facility sat on the outskirts of a rural Florida town, housed in a modest, single-story building used by a handful of contracted researchers studying regional reptile species. After hours, the empty hallways, locked offices, and dim lighting gave the place a stillness that often left late-working staff completely alone. Dr. Michael Webb had been working late in the lab for weeks, driven by mounting pressure to produce results necessary to renew his research contract. At 38, the respected herpetologist had built his reputation on groundbreaking studies of coral snake neurotoxins, but recent funding cuts had forced him to accelerate his research timeline. His colleagues had gone home hours earlier, leaving Michael alone with his specimens and his growing sense of urgency. Michael's research focused on the unique properties of coral snake venom, which differed significantly from the hemotoxic venoms of rattlesnakes and vipers. His work had potential applications for developing new neurological medications, but the delicate process of venom extraction required precise timing and absolute safety protocols. Internal emails and previous lab notes showed he frequently expressed frustration with what he considered overly cautious procedures. The lab's safety regulations required 2 researchers to be present during any venom extraction procedures, along with comprehensive protective equipment and emergency protocols. Michael had been circumventing these rules for months, working alone after hours to avoid oversight and accelerate his research progress. Coral snakes are among North America's most medically significant venomous snakes. Despite their small size and reclusive behavior, these slender reptiles rarely exceed 2 feet in length, but their venom contains neurotoxins that interfere with nerve signaling and can lead to progressive paralysis. Early symptoms may include subtle changes such as slurred speech or difficulty swallowing, with respiratory impairment developing later as the paralysis advances. Because coral snake bites often produce little pain, minimal swelling, and only tiny puncture marks, the envenomation can appear deceptively mild at first, with serious symptoms emerging gradually over several hours if untreated. That Friday evening, Michael was working with a particularly active coral snake specimen that had been recently captured for his research. The small serpent, with its distinctive red, black, and yellow banded pattern, appeared far less imposing than the larger vipers he regularly handled. Its small size and bright coloration, traits that often lead handlers to underestimate coral snakes, had been noted in Michael's previous handling logs, providing context for the reduced caution seen in the footage that night. Michael performed the venom extraction procedure without the required second researcher present, as confirmed by facility access logs and internal camera footage. Handling tools were available on the workstation, but the footage showed him attempting to position the coral snake manually rather than following the lab's standard restraint protocols. As he adjusted his grip, the coral snake delivered a quick, close-range bite to his thumb, a common defensive response during handling. Footage showed the snake maintaining contact for a brief moment, long enough to allow venom delivery, which is typical when coral snakes secure a bite rather than striking and releasing. The small fangs produced 2 faint punctures, and available footage showed him repositioning the animal immediately afterward, unaware of the severity of the envenomation. The bite appeared minor, leaving only tiny puncture marks with no immediate pain or swelling, features typical of coral snake envenomation. Security footage captured him returning to his workstation and continuing his notes, behavior consistent with not recognizing the bite as medically serious. Within about 30 minutes, Michael began showing early signs of neurotoxic envenomation. Lab timestamps and handwriting irregularities in his notes indicated slurred speech and visual difficulty, symptoms consistent with interference of cranial nerve function caused by coral snake venom. As the evening progressed, his condition worsened. Object handling captured on camera became increasingly uncoordinated, and a recorded attempt to call for help revealed speech that was difficult to understand. The call did not provide enough information for dispatchers to identify his location or the nature of his emergency. Neurotoxic effects continued to develop, leading to progressive muscle weakness and impaired respiratory function. Footage showed him bracing against the desk, with increasingly shallow breathing concealed consistent with advancing paralysis of the muscles needed for respiration. Sometime later that night, Michael lost consciousness at his workstation as respiratory failure progressed. With the facility locked for the evening and no co-workers present, there was no opportunity for timely assistance. He was found the following morning during a routine security check. The subsequent investigation documented repeated violations of safety protocols and a pattern of working alone with venomous specimens. Following the incident, the lab's management reviewed and tightened its internal procedures, emphasizing proper oversight and mandatory two-person operations during high-risk work. It was June 8, 2017, and the suburban neighborhood in Houston, Texas buzzed with the typical activity of a warm summer evening. Children played in front yards while parents tended gardens, and neighbors chatted over fence lines, creating the picture of American suburban tranquility. Behind the walls of one modest ranch home, however, a far more dangerous reality existed that none of the friendly neighbors could have imagined. Jennifer Valdez had been living her double life for over 2 years, maintaining the appearance of a normal 29-year-old veterinary technician while secretly housing a collection of exotic venomous snakes in her spare bedroom. Her work at a local animal clinic had sparked an interest in reptiles that quickly evolved into an obsession with the most dangerous species she could legally acquire. Jennifer's collection had grown through careful purchases at reptile shows and online dealers, where she had built relationships with breeders who specialized in venomous species. She kept her hobby completely secret from friends, family, and co-workers, knowing that most people would consider her passion both dangerous and irresponsible. Her latest acquisition was a juvenile gaboon viper that she had purchased from a private breeder just 1 month earlier. The snake represented a significant step up in danger from her previous collection of rattlesnakes and copperheads. Records from her purchases and handling logs showed she had been gradually acquiring more challenging species, indicating a consistent pattern of increasing risk in the reptiles she chose to keep. Gaboon vipers are large African vipers, known for their thick bodies, broad heads, and exceptionally long fangs relative to their size. Adult specimens can exceed 6 feet and weigh more than 20 pounds, but juveniles, like the one Jennifer kept, are smaller with proportionally shorter fangs. Their venom is primarily hemotoxic and cytotoxic, capable of causing extensive tissue damage, severe bleeding, and dangerous drops in blood pressure if not treated quickly. Although the species is capable of delivering large venom volumes, the effects vary depending on the size of the snake and the depth of the bite. Jennifer prepared to transfer the gaboon viper into a secured holding tub so she could perform routine enclosure maintenance. The open tub, a snake hook, and cleaning tools were found arranged beside the terrarium, indicating she was in the middle of a standard transfer procedure rather than casual cleaning. The position of the overturned tub and scattered equipment showed that the snake slipped from the hook during the transfer, landing on the enclosure floor near the opening. Gaboon vipers are heavy-bodied ambush predators, and even smaller specimens can shift their weight unexpectedly during handling. Based on the viper's final position, it had come to rest only a short distance from Jennifer's reach. When she attempted to redirect it toward the tub, the snake reacted at close range. From this short distance, the gaboon viper thrust forward in a powerful ambush-style strike. Bite marks on Jennifer's forearm showed deep penetration from fangs consistent with a juvenile specimen, and the surrounding blood pattern indicated a rapid, high-volume envenomation. After biting, the snake remained near the enclosure opening until responders later secured it. Evidence of the envenomation's effects appeared quickly. Blood droplets and a smeared handprint on the hallway wall showed she tried to steady herself as she moved toward the living room. Her bag of cleaning supplies was found overturned near the couch, suggesting she may have reached for it out of habit before her strength declined. Over the next 30 to 60 minutes, swelling and bleeding at the bite site progressed, and indicators in the living room, a collapsed posture near the couch and pooled blood on the floor, showed she attempted to sit before losing consciousness. When paramedics entered the home, they found Jennifer unresponsive and in cardiac arrest. Despite resuscitation attempts, the severity of the envenomation and the absence of appropriate antivenom in the region left no viable path for reversal. Following her death, wildlife officers initiated a review of her permits and handling practices, and the incident prompted renewed discussion among local officials about the risks associated with keeping exotic venomous species in residential areas. Wildlife officers and animal control personnel secured the Gaboon viper on scene and transported it to a permitted holding facility. The remaining snakes in Jennifer's spare bedroom were removed for evaluation, as several species required state verification of proper documentation. Her employer at the veterinary clinic confirmed that none of the animals had ever been brought onto clinic property, so the workplace remained open, though staff were notified as part of the investigation's standard questioning. The home remained cordoned off for several hours while officers completed enclosure checks and inventory before it was released to her family. No immediate legal penalties were issued, but her permits and housing conditions were formally reviewed as part of routine post-incident procedures. It was September 14th, 2015, and the small mountain chapel tucked deep in a remote Tennessee valley stood silent in the fading light. The wooden structure used for decades by a tiny independent congregation with its own traditions relied on the privacy of the surrounding hills to practice rituals not commonly seen outside the region. Reverend Samuel Briggs had been the spiritual leader of this small congregation for over 2 decades, following in the footsteps of his father and grandfather, who had established the serpent handling tradition in their family. At 54, Samuel had handled venomous snakes in religious services for most of his adult life, surviving 2 previous bites that he attributed to divine intervention and the power of faith. Samuel's personal collection of rattlesnakes and copperheads was housed in simple wooden boxes behind the church altar, where they waited to be called into service during worship. The snakes were considered sacred instruments of faith based on biblical passages that promised protection from serpents for true believers. Recent entries in Samuel's journals, later reviewed by investigators, described periods of difficulty maintaining the certainty he once expressed during services. Family members also reported that he had been spending more evenings alone at the chapel in the weeks prior, remaining long after scheduled activities had ended. Timber rattlesnakes are large forest-dwelling pit vipers capable of delivering substantial hemotoxic envenomation. Adults commonly reach 4 to 5 feet in length, and their fangs can exceed ½ an inch. Their venom disrupts blood clotting and damages tissue, and severe untreated bites, especially multiple bites at close range, can become life-threatening over several hours. That Wednesday evening, Samuel entered the empty church alone, carrying his largest timber rattlesnake in a simple wooden box. The massive serpent, nearly 5 feet in length, represented the most dangerous snake in his collection and had been used in countless worship services over the years. Samuel's presence in the chapel that evening was documented only through the items found near the altar: the wooden box, an open Bible, and a chair pulled close to the front. His recent journal entries indicated he had been reflecting on his responsibilities within the congregation, which may explain why he chose to handle the snake alone that night, rather than during a service. When he opened the wooden box and reached inside, the timber rattlesnake reacted defensively to the sudden close contact. In the confined space, Samuel's hand stayed within striking distance as he attempted to lift the snake, and the animal delivered several rapid bites, behavior consistent with close proximity handling incidents documented in similar cases. Bite marks on both hands and forearms showed different angles of penetration, indicating multiple strikes at very short range. Samuel dropped the snake and attempted to return it to its container, but the multiple envenomations had already begun affecting his coordination. Blood droplets on the floor and smudges on the side of a nearby pew indicated he tried to steady himself while moving away from the altar. The effects began progressing within the first hour, with swelling, bleeding, and falling blood pressure worsening steadily as the night went on. Bloodstains near the front pews and the position of a fallen chair suggested he attempted to move toward the exit before collapsing. The hemotoxic venom caused extensive swelling, impaired clotting, and a significant drop in blood pressure, eventually leading to loss of consciousness. Samuel's wife discovered him the following morning when he did not return home. Responders found the wooden box open near the altar and the timber rattlesnake coiled on the floor a short distance away, its location consistent with having been dropped during the handling attempt. Wildlife officers later secured the snake and transferred it to a permitted holding facility for evaluation. The county sheriff's office documented the scene, and the medical examiner determined the cause of death to be complications from untreated hemotoxic envenomation following multiple bites. With no indication of foul play, the investigation remained limited to routine reporting. The small independent congregation later discussed the incident privately, with differing views about the continuation of the long-standing ritual. It was November 3, 2013, in rural northeastern Namibia. A dry heat lingered under a pale sky as wind pushed dust across stretches of thorn scrub and scattered mopane trees. The tin roof of a small reptile rehabilitation outbuilding clicked softly as the metal shifted in the afternoon breeze. Inside the dim structure, wooden racks held plastic tubs and repurposed glass enclosures labeled in fading marker. The place was quiet in the way remote stations often are, where every sound, from a hinge settling to a sliding bin or a glove brushing plywood, seemed sharper than it should be. Selma Kashipa ran the rescue alone most days. At 41, she had left elementary teaching to take in snakes nobody else wanted, confiscations, surrenders, animals from failed roadside shows. She lived in a small trailer on the edge of the 20-acre property and kept a strict routine: feed logs, cleaning rotations, evening walkthroughs, so inspectors would find order even where money was short. Venomous intakes were recent and often arrived with little notice. She handled them with the tools she could afford and the practices she had learned from manuals and field guides. Donors knew her as steady and practical. She built racks from salvaged lumber, stretched every gallon of disinfectant, and drove borrowed coolers of non-venomous colubrids to school programs on weekends. Local officials started calling when other groups declined to take certain confiscations. Antivenom and rapid transport were not resources she had. Reliable medical support could be hours away. The rescue sat behind a wind-bent line of pines, a sand road cut to the outbuildings, where a lean-to covered 2 long shelves of enclosures. Light bled through board seams. The concrete floor was chalked with lime to mark walking lanes. A portable camera pointed down the main aisle to record husbandry and deter trespassers. Her latest intake that week had been a seized black mamba taken from a private owner who was keeping it illegally. Black mambas are native African elapids with potent neurotoxic venom and high venom yields for their size. Adults commonly exceed 6 feet in length, move quickly when provoked, and deliver venom that can cause progressive neuromuscular paralysis and respiratory failure without rapid antivenom and airway support. In remote regions where medical access is limited, the risk of rapid respiratory compromise rises substantially. Warnings had been stacking up in small ways. 2 weeks earlier, a volunteer sent photos showing a sagging upper rack. Brackets were rusted, and one screw head rounded smooth. Selma made a note to replace the supports, but kept feeding the animals that day. A notice from regional wildlife authorities had reminded permit holders to avoid solo work with dangerous species and to stage transfers at waist height. She acknowledged the message in a reply, but lacked extra hands. On the afternoon the incident occurred, the video shows her staging the move at dusk. A new glass tank sat on the suspect upper rack. A hook, a clear shield, and a pair of thin work gloves lay within reach. She slid the vented transport tub toward the shelf, left hand under the lip, right hand steadying. As the tub met the shelf edge, the front bracket shifted. The plank dipped a half-inch. The tank slid forward, and she reached to steady multiple enclosures. The mamba was pressed near the handle inside the vented tub. As the sudden slide tilted the container, the lid bounced. She steadied the tub with her left forearm and pushed with her right. The only path the snake had was toward the opening and the large warm object blocking it. From inches away, in confined space, a defensive strike occurred. In the confined opening of the tilted tub, the mamba delivered a single defensive strike before pulling back, a pattern documented when the snake has limited space to follow with additional bites. The camera misses the initial strike, but captures the immediate aftermath, a sharp jerk, the tub clattering to the floor, a hand lifted toward her collarbone as she stumbled back into the aisle. Blood appeared on the concrete and on the glove cuff. Later photographs showed 2 puncture wounds on the inner forearm, where the fabric split. The hook clanged on the rack and lay still. The clear shield bore a smeared mark. She moved toward the office and opened a drawer where she kept gauze and antiseptic. The partially unwound gauze and scissors on the desk indicated an attempt at basic wound management. Her phone remained on the opposite counter, undisturbed. The scene suggested she focused first on stabilizing the immediate area, standard practice at the facility, before her symptoms progressed too far for further action. Within minutes, the recorded footage shows her posture change. Speech, when audible on the brief recovered clip, had become slurred and her breathing quicker. Early neurotoxic effects often begin with subtle cranial nerve impairment, difficulty focusing, drooping eyelids, and unsteady movements. In the recording, the progression is visible. She steadied herself on the desk before lowering into a chair as limb strength declined. Over the next 45 minutes, the deterioration continued. The camera captured increasingly shallow breathing, intermittent attempts to reposition herself, and long periods of immobility. A trail of drops led from the office back toward the aisle and ended beside a folding chair. A bottle of saline lay on its side. The combination of rapid neurotoxin onset, lack of antivenom, and the facility's isolation left no practical path to the airway support required for survival. The footage recorded her sliding partially out of the chair a little over an hour after the bite. No further movement followed. A volunteer arrived after dark for a scheduled check-in when messages went unanswered. He found the office light on, the phone on the floor, and Selma slumped near the chair with shallow pooling beneath her arm. He backed away and called 911 from the road. Paramedics reached the property and confirmed cardiac arrest. Animal control officers secured the mamba using tongs and a transport box before transferring it to a permitted facility. The medical examiner listed the cause of death as complications of untreated neurotoxic envenomation with respiratory failure. The punctured glove, the displaced shelf, and the scattered hardware matched a structural failure during an enclosure move. Remaining animals were inventoried and relocated over the next 2 days. Regional wildlife officers documented the scene and noted the solo work, absent antivenom, and deteriorating rack supports. No broader penalties were issued. The rescue closed quietly. Neighbors collected her personal effects, and the camera's final clip, recorded after the property was cleared, shows the upper rack still a fraction low on the right bracket. A small mechanical fault that, in the end, set the rest in motion. Thanks for watching. Want to watch more? Click on your screen now.